let's make the sweater vest together. Hello and welcome back. Today I'm showing you step by step on how I crochet the sweater vest. This is a made to measure project, so you can switch up the proportions to fit your body and the style that you like. For example, every single project that I've made with this pattern is a little bit different in style. So I've made one that I've been wearing this summer that is super cropped and a little bit more fitted, but I also have this very boxy fit. And the one I am doing with you today is this green version, which I'm very excited about. But I will be walking you through every little step of the way. Also, there's going to be a speed explanation, so in case you are doing the project again or you just don't need the guidance through every little step, I have this portion explaining in a very fast way how to crochet this. In case anyone recreates this project for themselves, please let me know in the comments or DM me, send me a message, a photo. I love receiving messages and I love seeing people recreating the things that I put out. Also leave a follow if you want to see more tutorials, and hopefully one day I can do this full time for you. So without rambling on, let's get into the tutorial. So here's the game plan. You will be needing a back panel, a front panel, and then after sewing those together, we'll be adding the ribbing to the bottom, the armholes, and the neckline. Here's where you basically decide on the style of the sweater vest. How long or short is it supposed to be, how wide, boxy or fitted, and also how big or small the ribbing is going to be. It's good to have a rough idea on how you want the fit to be before you start, but I will show you how my process is. Let's talk materials. So for this project, I don't really think you have to limit yourself to any specific type of yarn. I have made this project with a super chunky yarn, with a stretchy yarn, and today I'm choosing this green fuzzy yarn. Since it is a made to measure project, it really doesn't matter. This will work with any type of yarn. Also, you will be needing a hook, of course. I always like to size up my hook size, so I'm going to be working with a 7mm hook today with a yarn that calls for a 5mm hook. That is just personal preference. This will work out perfectly fine if you use the recommended hook size as well. You will definitely need some scissors to cut the yarn. And also, which is nice to have, is maybe a thick needle to sew together the panels or weave in the ends at the end. This is not necessary because everything that needle can do can basically be done with the crochet hook as well, but I always like to have it just in case I need it. Okay, so starting off with the back panel, I will do a slip knot. I like to do it like this. I will be showing it a little slower again. So I have the short end here, and then I twist it so the long end lays on top of the short, and then from underneath through the circle I grab a little piece of the end and pull it through like this, and when I let it go I have a slip knot. So I put this on my hook and pull it tight like that, and now I'm ready to start my chain. I will start chaining the amount that I think I would like the sweater vest to be long. So I'm just going to start chaining. So I yarn over and pull it through. And I always like to hold my project with this hand while I go, because it gives me a little bit of stability, especially for the beginning. When I think I have the length that I want, I will check against my body. So this is what that looks like now, and I'm going to show you why I stop here. So I have my chain here that I've just started, and what I'm going to do now is put it up against the top of my shoulder, pulling it straight, not pulling on it, but putting it straight down, and see where the chain hits my upper body. I know we are at the back panel right now, but since the front and the back panel are the exact same length, it's just easier to see in the front. Keep in mind that there will be a ribbing added to the bottom, so it will get longer. Since you are the one deciding on how long the ribbing is going to be at the end, you are going to decide where to stop the chain and how long the ribbing is. So I hope that makes sense. I would like the green sweater vest to be basically the same as the beige, but much shorter, so I don't have to tuck it in. So I will be stopping here. The chain hits me right here, and I think I will be adding a ribbing that is around that much. I will continue with this and show you what's next. I wanted to give a little overview over the two sweater vests that I have already made, just to show you how different they can turn out when you switch up the proportions you are using. So for the beige version, I wanted it to be super oversized, so I made it super boxy, and also I knew how I would want to wear the sweater vest before I made it, so I knew I love a good tuck. So I made the sweater vest super long so that I can then take it up, tuck it in, and I have this fold. This is how I wanted it, so I made this sweater vest super long. For the one that I made for summer, I opted for a much smaller one, so it is not as boxy, it is way shorter, but the construction was the exact same as this one, other than the neckline, but I will show you how I did that later. I will also probably include a little sketch on the measurements of all the different types of sweater vests that I've made. Keep in mind, I am super tall and I mostly wear a medium, and I like things to be oversized. I think it's still best to measure up against yourself, but I think it's always nice to have a little reference point, so I will include that. Okay, so now that we know how long we would like the project to be, I will be adding 2 more chains to that length. So 1, 2, and this is going to be my turning chain. So this is not adding to the length, but it is here to go around the corner and start the new row. And that is also why we are skipping those 2 chains and inserting the very first stitch we are making into that space, because this was the last stitch we made for the length of the project. I will be using a double crochet. So for this I am yarning over, inserting my hook into the stitch, yarning over, pulling through. Now I have 3 loops on my hook, and then I'm yarning over, pulling through 2, yarning over, pulling through 2. So that's a double crochet, and I'm going to make a double crochet into every chain space of the chain. Let's do 2 more together. So I'm yarning over, inserting my hook into the next stitch, yarning over, pulling through. Now I have 3 loops on my hook. Now I'm yarning over, pulling through 2, yarning over, pulling through 2. One more time together. And I'm going to continue that until I'm at the end of the chain. So I am almost at the end of that row. I have 1 stitch left to do, so I will do 1 more double crochet. Now I am going to chain 2 as my turning chains again, like this, and then turn my work. Now I'm at the 2nd row, and I will continue doing double crochets, but I'm going to show you where I'm going to put the stitches. So when you look at the project from the side, you would normally insert your hook into these spaces. So when you look on top, you have these V shapes, and normally you would insert your hook right here and right here. So you would always pick up both loops of the V like this. And what I'm going to do now is do the double crochet, but I am only going into the back loop. So double crochet into the back loop. What that does is this will create the ribbed effect that I want for the sweater vest. All right, so I'm yarning over and inserting my hook into the back loop of the first stitch, yarning over, pulling through, yarning over, pulling through 2, yarning over, pulling through 2. so everything else stays exactly the same. Again, I'm yarning over, inserting my hook into the back loop, yarning over, pulling through, yarning over, pulling through 2, and then yarning over, pulling through 2. And that is what I'm going to do for the rest of the row and actually for the rest of the back panel. Since this is a made to measure project, you could also switch out the double crochet with another stitch that you like. So you could do a single crochet, you could do a half double crochet, for example, and work those into the back loops of every stitch. The main difference of switching up the stitch to, for example, a smaller one like a single crochet would be that the ribbed effect, so you can see how this is starting right here, this would get smaller when you use a smaller stitch, and they get bigger when you use a bigger stitch. So just in case you want to do the same design with another stitch. So I am done with that second row, and I wanted to show how I switch the rows one more time. And just a additional thing I wanted to say, beware to always keep the same amount of stitches, so your project will not get more narrow or wider when you don't want it to be. The goal is to have a square at the end, so there has to be the same amount of stitches in each row. I'm going to chain 2 as my turning chain, then turn my work and then start again with double crochet into the back loop of every stitch. That is what I'm going to do until the whole panel is done. So at the end of every row I'm going to chain 2 and then do double crochets into the back loop of every stitch, and I'm going to meet you again when it's time to stop. Alright, this is the time where I stop adding rows to the back panel. How I determine that is that I drape it over myself like this, so it is centered. I look at where the panel is hitting my arms. Since I want it to be a boxy fit, I extend, so here's the middle of my shoulder, and I want it to go over that. So it is a drop shoulder, just like the one I'm wearing right now. Keeping in mind that I will be adding ribbing to the side, so I will stop here, and I think that's good. So if you wanted to have a little bit of a slimmer one, like I have with the blue one, here I stopped at the top, at the top of the sides of my shoulder, and with the green I extended it by at least 10 centimeters on each side. So that is just something that you have to decide for yourself. So that would be the back panel done. It's now time for the front panel. I forgot to show how I finished off the last panel. So when you are, let's pretend this is the big panel here. When you are done with the panel, instead of chaining 2, I'm going to chain 1, snip the yarn and pull through like this, and then pull tight. And this end is going to be weaved in at the end. Alright, it's time for the front panel, and the nice thing here is it is almost the exact same as the back panel. So I'm starting off with a slip knot the exact same way, and I'm chaining the exact same amount that I have chained for the back panel. I will be working the front panel the exact same way. The only difference is I'm going to make a little dent in the middle of the project for the neckline. I will show you what that looks like when I get there. So just repeat the exact same steps as for the back panel. So starting off with the chain, doing the chain 2 for the turning chain, and then half double crochets into the back loop for a couple of rows. And I'm going to meet you again when we're at the point where something changes for the front panel. Alright, so I want the front panel to go down a little bit where the neckline is. So I will measure out 20 centimeters, which will probably work for most hats, I would say. And I will place these 20 centimeters in the middle of the back panel and see how many rows it takes for me to get to around that mark. That is the point where I will be doing something different for the front panel. So I have marked the 20 centimeters in the middle, and now I will take the front panel and align the rows on top of each other, just in case that I've stretched one or the other. And right now with this row, I'm at the point meeting the stitch marker. So that is where I want my neckline to start. And what I'm going to do is create a little dip here and then continue on with the rows until I meet the other stitch marker and then go up again. So how I am going to do that. So right now I have 7 stitches left of that row. And instead of finishing off that row up to the top, I'm going to stop here and do my turning chain right now. So I chain 2, turn my work. Now I'm just going to continue doing the double crochet into the back loop for the whole row and the next few rows. So as you can hopefully see here, I'm going to go all the way down and back up again and keep this length. So little by little, I'm gonna go all the way up to around here, and then I will extend that row with 7 stitches, because that's the 7 stitches we dropped here. I'm gonna add to the other side once we get there, and then finish off the panel with the same amount of rows I did at the start, but step by step. What I forgot to say is that the amount of stitches you are leaving out at the top to create the neckline gap varies with what type of yarn you're using and what hook size, because not all 7 stitches are going to be the exact same length. So just so you know, for me that is around 5 centimeters. It can also be a little less, but this is what I'm going for with this one now. And let's meet again when it's time to extend the row again. All right, we're back. So my row is meeting the stitch marker right there from the back panel now. So that means I'm going to extend that row by 7 to have the same height as for the beginning. So instead of chaining 2 and then going back that row, I am going to chain 7 like that, and then do 2 more as my turning chain and turn my work and do my very first stitch into that 7th stitch right here. So I have my 2 turning chains, and then I will do a double crochet down that chain we have just made. Okay, now we are back at the main project, and I will just keep doing double crochets into the back loop like that, and continue doing that for the next couple of rows. Okay, so now I will be building up the rows exactly as I did before. Double crochet into the back loop, chain 2 as my turning chain, and go back and forth, and this time going all the way to the top again until I have the exact same amount of rows on this side that I do on that side of the neckline part. So I have an even panel. And I'm going to meet you again when I'm at the point where I'm finished with the front panel. So I added the other side of this panel. So in the end, I have a symmetrical one that is exactly as wide as the back panel, as you can see roughly here. Now it's time to sew those 2 panels together. So now that I want to finish off the front panel, I'm going to chain 1, snip the yarn, and pull through, pull it tight, and that's the panel complete. It is time to assemble the pieces. So I will put down the back panel like this and put the front panel on top of it. What I'm going to do first is connect the shoulder pieces. So that means from here to here and from here to here. I'm going to be sewing the panels today, so I have a thick needle and I will just need some of the yarn that I'm already using, but I will also show you how you could also crochet the pieces together. Let's maybe start with crocheting the pieces together. So I'm going to start off with the slip knot, like I always do. but not putting it on the hook right now. So I'm going to take my crochet hook and insert it into the corner of the front panel like that, and then inserting it into the corner of my back panel like this. Then I'm going to put my slip knot on top of it, pull it tight, and then pull it through both. Now I have a loop on my hook and I'm going to yarn over and pull through, so now it is secure and I can start working, connecting the pieces together. I am trying to lay down the two panels on top of each other so they line up with each other. So I'm not stretching either of the panels so they don't get wonky in the end. I'm really trying to have them lined up. And how I like to connect the pieces when I'm crocheting them together is I am inserting my hook a little bit further than the corner. Since we are at the side of the panels, we don't really have proper stitches to work into. I'm just trying to go a little bit further and inserting my hook there at the same height on the back panel also. Then I'm yarning over, pulling through both of the panels, and then I'm going to do a slip stitch. So I'm taking the first loop that I've just pulled through and pulling that through the second loop on the hook. And that is how I am slip stitching the two panels together. So inserting my hook into a space a little bit further, yarning over, pulling through, and then pulling through the loop on my hook. I'm not trying to do it super loose. I'm also not doing it super tight, otherwise it can again get a little wonky. So just enough to connect them together, slowly working my way down the shoulder seam. So now I am at the other side of the shoulder in the front panel. So I'm inserting my hook into the corner, and then in the back panel doing one last slip stitch, and now I am chaining one, snipping off, pulling through and pulling tight. So now we have the two panels connected like this. Now for how I would sew the panels together on the other side. Here you're going to have to snip off the yarn before, so I usually have way too much. Better safe than sorry. I am threading it through my needle like this. And I also like to start in the corner here, lining up the two panels so none of the panels are stretching in a way that I don't want them to, and they are even to each other. I'm actually going to flip the project because I like to work from right to left. So I have the back panel on top here now. Now I'm inserting my hook into the corner of the panel that is laying towards the table, and then inserting my needle into the other corner of the other panel, pulling it through until I have this little tail. And I don't know if that's the proper way to do it, but I like to do a double knot here like this, and that's my starting point. Trying to align the panels with each other and then just go in a sewing motion. So from the back to the front, picking up both panels and connecting them with each other until I reach the point where the shoulder part stops. And there I'm going to do another double knot. And that's how I like to connect the panels with sewing. I'm at the other corner right now, so I'm picking up the corner of the shoulder and doing my last stitch. And then before pulling it tight, I will insert my needle into the loop and then do one knot, and I'm going to do another one like this, snipping the end off. That is how sewing together the pieces look like from that side and from that side. That is how I do it. So it is time to determine how big the armholes should be. So the shoulders are connected, so I can actually kind of put it on for the first time. Maybe before I take this off, you can see I have the armholes really low, so they actually basically are hitting my waist, because I like to wear it on top of oversized shirts and t-shirts. So if this was closed up until right underneath my armpit, this would just not work as well. But if you like to wear your sweater vests more tight, adjust where you sew the side seams together. So I will show you. I am going to put it on. It's starting to come together. I'm very happy. And then I will adjust so both panels basically hit the same height. I'm determining the armhole basically on one side. So I put both panels together and without stretching them too much, align them, go up until I'm happy where the armhole would be. So I think maybe a little further. I think that is perfect. So I'm taking a stitch marker and marking just the front loop like this. So just to check again, I think this will be good. So again, it will be quite far down, maybe a little bit higher. So I'm gonna put it up a little more, so it's here. And the reason why I'm putting the stitch marker only in the front panel is so now I can take it off and count the stitches and only then connecting the back panel to the exact same height. Because even though I was being careful by not stretching any of the panels, it still can happen and I don't want the project to get wonky. So I count the stitches here now, I recount them at the back panel, stitch marker that together and sew the side seams up until that point and repeat that on the other side. So I'm not eyeballing the other side here, but I will count the stitches so both of the armholes are even, if that makes sense. That is also the exact same way how I did the blue version, with the difference only that I had basically just 2 stitches that I wanted to connect to each other. But yeah, just wanted to show you because I thought that was funny. So I have the project back on the table and I have counted out how many stitches it was from the bottom until the stitch marker that I've put. So for me that was 24, and then I counted out the 24 stitches on the other panel, and now I have the stitch marker that goes through both of the panels. And now I'm going to take my needle and my thread again and I will sew them together as I did for the shoulder parts, and I'm going to repeat that for the other side of the project as well. So for the other armhole, I like to start in the corners again just to make sure that they will definitely match up. And on the side panels or for the armholes connections, it is much easier to sew them together or also crochet them together because now we have actual stitches. So I will insert my needle into every stitch and sew them together, and I'm trying not to pull too tight, otherwise it will get wonky again, but also not too loose because I am trying to connect those 2 panels. So I'm going to meet you again when both sides are closed up. Alright, I am back. Everything is sewn together now, so I have these side seams closed. I also redid the part where I have crocheted the panels together because I realized the panels didn't match up. I did a little bit of a sloppy job, so I opened it up again. Next step is going to be the ribbing. So the ribbing on the armholes at the bottom, and the neckline is also constructed the same way as the ribbing on the other parts. The only difference is going to be that for the neckline and the bottom, I will be doing 1 row of single crochet all around, so I have proper stitches to work into. I don't have to do this step on the armholes because we are working on the rows as it is, so I have proper stitches here, which I don't really have at the most part of the neckline and especially not on the bottom. But let's not get ahead. I will show you the general way of how I like to do the ribbing. Starting off with the armholes, I'm going to be starting with a slip knot, but not putting it over my hook just yet. So I am going to start at the bottom of the armpit, inserting my hook into one of the stitches, putting the slip knot over the hook, pulling it tight and pulling it through. Now I am deciding on how wide I want the ribbing to be, and I'm gonna go with 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. This is how wide I would like the ribbing to be. After that, I will be chaining 1 as my turning chain and then do single crochet all the way back to the main part of the project. So I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2. And that is what I'm going to do for all of the 5 stitches. You can adjust on how wide you want to make this. I vary this with every project I do, because it also depends on the yarn you're choosing on how big it gets. So now I'm back at the main project, and my goal is to attach the ribbing while going forward with the stitches. So I'm inserting my hook into the first stitch next to where I came out, yarning over, pulling through, 2 loops on the hook and pulling the first loop through the second one. So I am slip stitching it on. Now I'm doing another slip stitch into the next stitch next to it. So I'm moving forward a little bit, inserting my hook, yarning over, pulling through and pulling through the loop on my hook. And now is the time that I am flipping my work. And I'm skipping the first slip stitch that I used to attach the project and only going into the 5 stitches that determine the width of my ribbing. What I'm going to do here as well is work only into the back loops, because I also want this ribbing effect on the sleeves and at the bottom and the neckline. And because I am doing single crochets here, the ribbing is going to be much finer than with the main panel, which I really like. So inserting my hook, doing single crochet along, number 5. Now I am chaining 1 as my turning chain, flipping my work and going back again with single crochet, only picking up the back loop. It gets a little tricky to see with yarn so fluffy. So now I am back at the base. As you can see here, this is the loop where it was starting from. So I'm going to attach this into the next loop right next to it with a slip stitch. So we're coming from here right now, all the way up, down, and now I'm inserting my hook into the next stitch and slip stitching it on, doing another slip stitch into the next stitch like this, turning my work and do everything all over again. So this is what I'm going to do for as long as it takes for me to get back to the beginning. And I'm going to show you how to close off the round when I get there. So I went all the way around the armhole and I'm basically back at the start. The very first row came out of here, so the stitch next to it here. What I'm going to do now is work my way down again, but not as before, but crocheting the very start with the end piece. Instead of chaining 1 as my turning chain, I will get the corner of the starting piece here, yarn over and pull that through both sides, so like this. And what I'm going to do now is I'll be picking up only the inner loops of each side, so, and crochet them together with the slip stitch. So I have this side here and picking up only 1 loop, the one that is facing the other side, and going through the other side, only picking up 1 loop, yarning over and pulling it through and pulling it through the loop on my hook, so slip stitching them together. And I'm going to do that with all 5 stitches, always picking up 1 loop, crocheting them together. Last one. Now they are crocheted together, so I am chaining 1, snipping the yarn, pulling through and pulling tight, and the two pieces are connected together and the ribbing is complete. What I'm going to do now is repeat the same exact thing on the other armhole. Alright, so both of the ribbings of the armholes are done now, and now I am going to do the neckline. So I'm going to switch it up here just a tiny little bit in comparison to the armholes, because here we started right away with doing the ribbing, and what I'm going to be doing for the neckline is do one round of single crochet before I start with the ribbing itself, because I want to have proper stitches I can work into. For that I will be starting with a slip knot again. I am waiting to put it on my hook, and I will insert my hook into any point of the neckline. So I will start, probably in the middle of the back, because there will be maybe a tiny little seam where I will connect the ribbing at the end, so I don't want that to be in front. So I am inserting my hook, putting the slip knot on my hook and pulling it tight and pulling it through like this. Now I'm going to do single crochet all around, and I will always insert my hook a little bit further and do single crochets. So they are not really proper stitches to work into, so I'm doing my best doing them evenly. So every time I put my hook into the project, I try to go a little further, as you can see here, and I'm going to do that until I am back where I started. There will be a few moments where you have proper stitches to work into. For example, with the front piece, the places where you extended the row, so right here, so that is an easy choice to where to put the stitches. So I am back where I started at the middle of the back panel. This is the first stitch that I've made this round. So I'm inserting my hook into the first stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then pull the first loop through the second loop. So I'm slip stitching the round closed. And now I am starting to build the collar. So there are two different ways that I have done this in the past. Either I'm going to do the ribbing as I did for the armholes, so deciding on how long I want it and then working my rows into the back loop of each row and connecting it to the main project while I go. Or the way that I have done with the blue sweater vest, where I've done the collar by going around the neckline in rounds like this, which is just creating a different kind of collar. I would like to have a ribbed neckline and collar, so that's what I'm going to do, but I will just quickly go over how I did the other one. So from here on out I would chain one and go around with single crochet and then do 4 decreases during that one round. So I would basically maybe do a decrease here, 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 and here. Then I would connect the last stitch of the round with the first stitch of the round with the slip stitch, that just like I have done right here. Chain one and then do another round of single crochet and again do 4 decreases. What that does is makes the circle go smaller and smaller, so the collar would lay flat against your body while wearing it. And I would just repeat that until I like the thickness of the collar. Beware that your hat has to fit through the hole in the end, so you might have to adjust how many decreases you are doing. I hope that explanation was somewhat helpful. I will probably do another project in the future where I will show you properly how I would do a collar like this, but for now I will stick with the ribbed collar. So I would like the collar to be double the height that I want the end result to be, because I like the way it looks when I fold it over. So it has 2 sides. So I'm going to chain the length of the collar that I want and then do it double as long Okay, so I think that is the length that I want. And from here on out, the procedure is the exact same as for the sides. So I'm going to go back with single crochets, go in with the slip stitch into the next stitch, another slip stitch into the stitch next to that, and then go up again, doing single crochet into the back loop only, chain one, single crochet into the back loop back, and so on and so forth. So that is how I'm going to build up the whole neckline now. And this is also the exact same method I used on the bottom of the project. I have done one row of single crochet, slip stitched it together, and then started building up the rows with the ribbed effect. I am going to see you again when the whole project is done. I'm very excited. Alright, it's time for the speed explanation. Chain as long as you would like your project to be, but keep in mind you're going to be adding ribbing to the bottom, that's adding to the length. Then you're going to build up the rows doing double crochet into the back loop only until you have a big enough panel that you would like the project to be. If you want a boxy fit, you will make a bigger rectangle. If you want a more fitted sweater vest, then you are going to make a smaller one. Then you are done with the back panel. Mark with stitch markers around 20 centimeters in the middle of your back panel. That is going to determine your neckline, and you're going to know when to start the neckline with the front panel. Start with the front panel by doing the exact same amount of stitches that you've done for the back panel, and then start building up the rows the exact same way by doing double crochets into the back loop only. Build the rows until you meet the first stitch marker on your back panel. Drop the last seven or so stitches and keep on working until you meet the other stitch marker, and then add those 7 stitches to your front panel again, and then work up the rest of the rows until both the front and the back panel are the same exact width. Then sew together the shoulder seams and the side seams and leave the openings for the armholes as long as you would like them to be. Now it's time for the ribbing. For the armholes, connect your chain to the main project, chain as long as you would like the ribbing to be, and then work single crochets into the back loop, back and forth, connecting the ribbing in between to the main project with slip stitches. For the neckline and the bottom ribbing, I did a row of single crochet first, so it is easier to work the stitches into the main project while I go. I hope that was fast enough, but also understandable. In case it was not clear enough, I'm afraid you have to go into the main video to look that up. Hope that helps. Okay, just a little overview over the... Okay, so